Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. Hope you're all doing good today. So we're going to be turning one of the bamboo stick pen blanks up. I guess that the thumbnail was wrong. I'll have to change that after the stream. But so last week we cast these sticks made out of bamboo. And so they're not like the natural bamboo. They're just, it's made from it somehow. But we cast some different types of ways of casting things, and we got some pen blanks. So let's go to the overhead. Here are, so I already put the, we did two different sets. We did one casting, if you didn't watch last week's stream, vertically. And so we just put resin in there and then shoved the sticks down in and made a pretty big mess. But those ones, I don't have one because they're all in the subscription boxes to send to people. So I don't have one of those, but basically those were running lengthwise and there was like 4 sticks in each one. And then these guys were cast in the, just a flat mold. And so we got a couple of different looks. I just kind of stuck some cut off chunks down in and then poured resin over it for these two. One thing to note, this stuff does kind of float. You know, it floated up in this one. Got a little bit better in this one. But just, think about that when you're casting things like this. And then we did a couple other different ones. We poured some, I filled one of these slots with a bunch of cutoffs that were standing up basically. And then I forgot to get those pieces in. I actually did that casting where I had the three long sticks of them. Hard to explain, but I forgot to put these in. I actually did that casting and I have video. I'll probably share that on Patreon. Just to kind of show you how that went, but it turned out pretty good. This one's a different color. I went with some blue and silver. It's kind of hard to see. I didn't polish this up, but it did work, pretty well doing it that way. So a couple of different looks. One thing I do want to note, I got some parts, if you can see right there, it kind of tore out the resin. All right, so one thing I really thought these things would adhere like really well because it's like an organic material, probably has some, I don't know, the outsides were fairly, not rough, but they weren't like super smooth necessarily. But the insides I think are smoother, or they might have even put something on them. So once again, we might be pulling the CA glue out and, just kind of hoping things kind of stay together. Now, the blank that I decided to pick was, we actually filled the pieces, filled the tubes. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. We filled the tubes, or the sticks, with resin first, then cast those with, our I think this was like silver, green, and blue, or blurple maybe. So I decided to pick that one. We only had one of them, and that one kind of looked really interesting. It kind of reminded me of like pool cues, kind of have that look to them. It also kind of reminded me of the colored pencils that we did. How did we cast those? It's the ones where I kind of got the idea from Chad. How did he cast those? What was different about them? Can't even remember what was different. It was, I think, the way that we stacked them. But it looks like it should be pretty fun. I'm hoping that everything like stays together. I think the thing is, most of the resin is going to stay together because it's like held in by a tube. But what happens is when it gets down to just a little tiny bit of resin kind of sticking out of the edge of that bamboo stick, that's where I think we're going to have issues where it may tear out. So when we start kind of getting down low, if we have areas like that, I'm going to definitely hit it with CA glue. But I'm going to start off not doing anything with CA glue, just kind of turn it and see how it goes. I think for the most part, everything should stay together fairly well. But again, in these instances, CA glue, the super thin stuff, is gonna, it can kind of penetrate into any little cracks and crevices or areas where the resin isn't like super adhered and like grabbed onto the material. It can kind of help keep things together for you. So anyway, it should be pretty fun. So who was here first? Frank was here first. Nice. Followed by Lelia and Kim and Mike McEwen. Nice. Who else we got here? Jean's here. Alan's here. Dominic. And Connie. And Lorenzigs is here. How's it going? And Paul. Old Man Rivers here. Chris. Nice. All right, so Chris has a question. Go ahead and shoot your question to me. I have my phone set up so I can see the question over at the lathe. I think we're gonna switch over to the lathe cam. So what I chose was a cigar style kit. I thought that would be a good, pretty cool looking. Actually, I didn't even pick a kit yet. I think we'll kind of wait till we turn it up and see what everything looks like, and then I'll kind of pick the plating. But that's one of the nice things. You don't really have to a lot of times I'll pick a Sierra kit, Sierra style, or a cigar or a junior, because I don't really have to pick a kit ahead of time. I don't have to, think about that. I can turn the pen and then say, well, I think that even hold up the pieces, with different platings or different looks on them, and you can kind of pick the best one that way. That's one of the reasons why I like those 3 kits, because there's so many variants. You can just kind of stock up on chrome, gold, whatever different platings there are, throw in some tubes, and they're all the same things for a bunch of different, platings and looks. So it's kind of nice to do that after the fact. Let's see here. Don't think we didn't get the question yet. So I'm going to switch over to the lathe cam, and we're going to be turning between center bushings. That's the way that I like to do it. Turn the lathe on. Let's start with this one. This is the where the clip goes. Get that thing going here. Turn my phone back on. I don't know why it turned off. There it goes. Make sure the volume's down. All right. And we got a decent looking picture. There's our blank. All right, I got to get my dust collection hoses open. Get a drink, and then we'll start turning. All right, so Chris is asking if you want to do a 3-layer resin coaster. It's tough to say. How do you keep them separated without them mixing? You're probably going to have to do 3 separate pours for something like that. If you want it to be absolutely separated, there's no way to pour resin on top of, when it's in liquid form. You can't really pour it on top. If like I said, if you wanted 3, even layers or whatever, where there's a line, you're just gonna have to let it set up and then pour more on top once it's hard enough to actually hold the next layer, the next pour up without, without the resin, splashing around that first layer. So it's not a big deal. Even if you wanted to pressurize them, you can do that. I would say epoxies, the longer working time resins, they're a little bit harder to do that with, because you have to leave them in the pressure pot longer, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you can pour resin on top of resin, as long as you do it, kind of the general rule is as soon as possible kind of thing, but definitely within 24 hours, you should get decent adhesion. And it's a coaster, so it's not like you're going to turn it. And being, you're not applying pressures and jamming chisels and, spinning it up and doing all that kind of stuff. It's just going to lay flat. So it's going to adhere fine for that purpose. Just wait till it sets up and you'll be good to go. All right, so let's get some glasses on. Get my carbide cutter. We're going to be using the negative rake. And when I was cutting these blanks on the table saw, the bamboo should turn quite nicely. I'm assuming it cut fine on the table saw. Everything was good. I have a little bit of looks like CA glue on the edge of my cutter here, so I'm actually going to grab, you can just use some acetone to get off, to dissolve CA glue. I would say that, for a finish, it's a great finish, but the only problem is if you ever get acetone on your on your pen for some reason, it will dissolve the finish. So the only drawback. If you need something that's like, you know, that's going to protect even against that, UV finishes, you know, they don't dissolve with acetone. So that would, if you have some kind of a project for pens, I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. How often do you get acetone on a pen, you know? Especially if it's like kind of fancy enough to where you're actually putting like a finish on it and all that. You're probably not going to be, you know, messing around with it at the lathe or around chemicals. But if you have a project that does require something, a finish to protect it from even like acetone, UV finish will resist that. I mean, I wouldn't submerge it necessarily, you know, but if you get a little on there, it's not going to affect anything. Okay, let's get this thing rolling here. Turn the lathe speed up to as fast as it'll go. I did get a few little chips. Now it is square right now, and so this is one of the most problematic times, you know, when you got something like this where something can kind of chip out. When it's square, you're kind of slapping at it, you know. It usually kind of calms down once you've turned everything round. Then you have just an even pressure on it, and things kind of go a little bit easier. You know, you could try using like a skew chisel or even just sand off the corners and try and get it somewhat round. That'll kind of help out a little bit. If it's something where you definitely have to get this blank turned, don't be afraid to pull out the 80 grit smoother, you know. Ah, we lost a big chunk. Well, that's disappointing. I could probably glue it back. Wow, yeah. Huh. I can glue that back in. So, it looks like we're gonna have to pull out the CA glue right away. It's been like 4 weeks in a row and we've, move that thing out, where we've had pretty difficult blanks. So let's glue this piece back in. This one might actually be the worst that I've done. Chunks are flying. I don't know. I'm gonna use I have a medium thick. It's a Star Bond. It won't run all over the place. I think that'll be if I can get this to come out of the tube here. I think that'll be a good one to use for this. So just a warning for the subscriber folks. Subscription boxes. Might want to pre-soak these things. Just to give you as much advantage as you can beforehand. I didn't really think they were going to be that bad. In fact, off the bat, I thought it was going to be a really good adhesion. I guess not. If you need to apply pressure on something while you're CA gluing it, you can use the caps or anything that's like an HDPE product to kind of hold it down and then hit it with the accelerator. Luckily, it was a big chunk, so That's much easier than trying to find little tiny bits to glue back in. All right, so we're gonna pull out. Now we're gonna switch over to the super fast thin. We're gonna have to douse this thing, because I'm going pretty easy on it and it's just fighting me. So I'm gonna get a paper towel so I don't drip CA glue all over the place. And I'm just gonna kind of douse the blank all over the place. Try not to make a huge mess. Oh. I think the outsides of these bamboo things are sticking fairly well. It's that inside just really didn't adhere, you know, not getting very good adhesion on the inside of that thing. It's pretty smooth. I think these things are kind of marketed as like straws. So I don't know. I didn't really think about that when I was choosing, when I was buying them. Whoop. All right, so we'll let that kind of sit for a minute. Think about what it's done. And while we're kind of waiting, I think I'm also just gonna add a little bit onto, let's see, can you see? No. I'm gonna add a little bit onto this one. Give it a pre-treatment. Now, I actually buffed these, so CA is just kind of pooling on the surface a little bit, but I think it should run down in there a little bit. We'll just see what we can get here. Okay, I'll set that aside. Let's see if we can get through this thing. We might not get through this one, I gotta be honest. We haven't gotten too far into this, and it's being a pain. Being extremely careful. Really taking a light cut. Thanks for the super chat. Let's see here. So That stuff's staying together a little bit there. We'll have to kind of see once we get more of this stuff exposed. Slowly but surely. Probably stop and add some more CA, like, you know, somewhat frequently. All right, let's see what this looks like now. Oh, I should fix the camera, huh? Get you guys a kind of a close-up here so you can see it. Like I said, the bamboo turns fine. It's just some of these areas just maybe don't have the best adhesion. So I think we're going to stop again, and I'm just going to give it another dose of CA glue here real quick. Need to buy stock in CA glue. I think this thing, if we can get through this, this is going to be one killer pen blank. I think. Just gotta get through it. I've gone through so much accelerator, I had to buy a couple extra cans. I'm running out. Luckily, I got plenty of CA glue. All right, so let's let it sit for a minute. Sometimes if you don't really let it like set up, you can start turning into it and you got liquid CA glue still. And then it gets all over your carbide tip. Zoom out a little bit. Yeah, it kind of depends on what the 3D printed doesn't really. There's resin 3D printing if that's what they use. I've found that has a really good bond, and the material's fine to turn. It's almost exactly the same as Alumilite. If they use, a normal, like, I don't want to say normal, but like what people typically think of for 3D printers. The ones where it just kind of melts the plastic and lays it down. There are a ton of different types of materials they could have used. but in general, those don't adhere or turn as well, typically. And so, yeah, but they work fine. You have to be careful, you know. So it kind of depends, I guess. I haven't had any problems with the resin 3D printed stuff that I've done. That stuff turns amazing. It adheres well with resin. Everything's good. But you know, I'm trying to think of what is the material. I can't think of. There's one material that like people use a lot, PLA. If it's PLA, that stuff's super brittle, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the pen blank's bad or going to blow up or anything, but it's more difficult to turn than, you know, other materials. It's more delicate. You should be fine though, just like I said, you know. One thing I recommend is search my channel and find how to, you know, prepare and turn. I'm not sure what the title is. Something about mixed materials. Just look at that. That'll tell you what to do, how to get through difficult blanks. One big tip is, you know, when you're drilling, turning, any of that kind of stuff, don't get the blank hot. You know, so drill carefully. Just take, you know, like maybe a 1/4 inch depth at a time, and then clear the chips. But don't overheat the blank. Which actually, you know, last week we were dealing with the honeycomb blanks, and I was like, this batch for some reason seemed, I don't know, it didn't adhere that well, which it was atypical of my blanks usually. Sorry, I'm trying to turn the camera around. So I wanted to mention, I think I figured out what the problem was. So what I did, do I have a honeycomb blank? Well, I don't have a pen blank, but oh yeah, I do. I got one of these. Okay, so I don't know if I'm on the camera here. So these were the blank, one of the blanks. Let me get in front of the camera. And so the thing was, what I did, the blank, the brick didn't come out of the, you know, when I cast it and demolded it, the bottom was a little bit kind of lumpy, and I use my table saw to cut the blanks out. You don't want something flopping around on your table saw. It's not good. I don't know if I'm on camera. But the base was, you know, kind of weird, the edges. So it would have rocked while I was cutting it, which is bad. It can bind and it's a bad deal. So what I did was I came over to the belt sander with the brick and I flattened the bottom of it. And what I did was I actually overheated the blank. I didn't think about what it was doing, but it heated up, you know, the entire blank and especially the metal in there. And it was the case for all the blanks. I sanded them first. So be very careful if you're gonna flatten, you know, like flatten blanks like that with honeycomb or any of these materials in it, because if you get the blank super hot, then the materials tend to want to separate. And it could be because, you know, heat can cause things to expand and contract. And so that's what probably happened with those blanks, is I got them too hot because I had to sand off quite a bit to get them flat. So just wanted to kind of mention that. Heat is definitely the enemy when it comes to any of these types of mixed materials. And that goes back to the 3D printed stuff. If you get the plastic hot, you know, the 3D printed material heats up. I mean, that stuff, the way it works is it melts and then it lays it down, right? So, you know, depending on how hot you get that stuff, it can kind of like melt, basically. And even with resins, if you get them, you know, up too hot, they kind of melt, or they don't really melt, but they can warp and soften. So you want to always stay away from heat. So it looks like things are going at least better than when we started here. I'm still being extremely careful. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm taking a very small cut. And another thing, I'm not moving the tool fast. I'm just kind of leaving it sit there and going, you know, fairly slow. That can kind of help as well. All right, I want to stop and see what you're worried about. You shouldn't be worried about it, but yeah, I mean, I would contact the person, find out what they use. If you're somewhat worried, because if they tell you, oh, I used a Resin 3D printer, then I wouldn't worry at all. I don't think that you have anything to worry about at that point. That stuff turns excellent. It's, as far as I'm concerned, the Resin 3D printing stuff, it's indistinguishable. It's almost the same exact like hardness as Alumilite anyway. So it's very similar and it bonds well. PLA and some of those other materials, they're just a little bit more brittle, and so it kind of just depends on the blank. If you're talking about just very thin pieces of it, like a honeycomb blank or something like that, where you know all that you have is just thin bits of the plastic in there, the 3D printed material, those turn pretty well. But if you got a big chunk of it, like something like this, these shamrocks are all 3D printed material. That's where you're going to run into issues with like a PLA, because it's not like a solid mass in there, and that's where it's still probably going to be. It's not like you're not going to get through it. It's just if you go into it and just start hacking away at the blank, that's you're going to have problems. So just take your time. And everything should go pretty well. So let's zoom in on this thing for you guys. Show you where we're at. We're starting to, we're getting through the material now, and so problem is this is where you start getting closer to the end, and there's only like little chunks left in there and stuff. That's where stuff kind of comes apart. So I think we're gonna stop. I'm gonna give it another dousing of CA glue again, just for good measure. I think the thing is, with these kind of mixed materials or difficult blanks or whatever, the game is you just need to stack the cards in your favor in as many ways as you can. Don't use dull tools. Simple things like that. Don't overheat the blank. I also think that my method of gluing tubes in when you're dealing with mixed materials, where I douse the inside of the blank before I glue in the tube with CA glue, with this same thin CA glue. So from the inside, I'm already applying a dose of this when I glue the tubes in. Now I don't recommend doing that on wood, just normal wood blanks and stuff like that, but because you're probably going to get your tube halfway in and it'll set up on you, the moisture and stuff in wood. Now I did it on these bamboo blanks, which it could have been hit or miss, but typically when you're dealing with just plastics and stuff like that, or metals and plastics or whatever, I've never had a problem with CA. I douse the inside of the blank with thin CA, and then I use the thick, which has a longer open time. I apply that to the tube. So check that video out, how I glue tubes in. But I think that's probably one of the reasons why I get through a lot of these things. Simply just the way I glue my tubes in. You know, and then using those other standard, you know, don't overheat it, take light cuts, that kind of stuff. And you should be able to get through it, because I'm not particularly the best turner on the planet. I don't I'm kind of a hack on a lathe, but I managed to get through these blanks, and so I think if I can do it, anyone can. Just takes a little bit of patience and a lot of CA glue. Another little, I guess, tip or trick, I tend to leave my blanks fat, you know, like I kind of give it a curvature. And another thing is, you know, if you turn it way down, if you're turning like, well, okay, so don't turn a slimline pen where there's like no material left when you're done. Stay away from super thin pen blanks, you know, pen kits. Go for the cigars, the Sierras, where you can leave a little bit of meat on there. That kind of helps out and gets you through things too. It's when you turn it down and there's only like 1/8 of an inch left across the entire thing, that's where you start kind of running into issues. There's just not enough material left, you know, and it makes it more difficult for the blank to stay together when you're taking all the material off. So I kind of go for like kind of a little bit of a, you know, kind of a fat pen. And that's for a couple reasons. I also want to leave as much of the blank, because my whole thing is the blanks. You know, I look at it less like I made a pen and more like I made this really cool blank and I'm going to do something with it. So I like to leave the blank big. Leave as much of the blank, you know, there as possible. Anyway, but it also does give you a little bit of help when you're dealing with you know, difficult materials and stuff. Hey Dave Porter, how's it going? Brian's here. All right, sorry, I was just checking, seeing what was happening in the chat. We're doing okay. Haven't had any, you know, haven't even felt any like where it kind of catches. You can kind of feel like, oh, the material's kind of pulling apart. I haven't had any of that lately. Only at the beginning there. This is pretty cool looking. Even these things floated a little bit because you get this big area. I might have just also not filled the cavity, the mold. They didn't really set in there as well, but I think even these floated a little bit possibly. I think I'm gonna, while we're sitting here, I think it ain't gonna hurt anything to hit it with a little bit more CA glue. we're starting to get, you know, especially on the ends here, we're starting to get down to the bushings. And again, that's kind of where you start running into the problems again. Usually the middle is the easiest part. You know, you're not really going to run into a whole lot of problems in the middle. It's usually at the beginning when it's still square, and at the end when you've turned it down super thin. That's where things start falling apart. Hey, what's up, Mike? Where'd my lost? Oh, there it is. Give it just a second here. Another little tip that can sometimes come in handy, if you're having a lot, I don't know, this can go both ways, but sometimes it's better to knock down the corners. I was kind of telling you that like a skew chisel sometimes is better to knock the corners off of a pen blank if you can handle it, if you're okay with having, you know, with using a skew chisel. Because it's just a sharp edge, it can kind of shear things off a little bit easier. But if you don't have that, if you have carbide, another way to do it is just use the point on your square. And this is not this is a regular carbide. But you can just use that point. You know, you're not doing it on the flat. That's going to rip apart a blank really easy. But just use that corner, and the thing is, you're applying a lot less force on that blank. There's just a very sharp point kind of cutting those corners. That can kind of help sometimes. It's a hit or miss. I don't really do it that much, but you know, that is something you can do. A lot of other pen turners, that's what they do to kind of get things going. Just use that corner. And that's kind of how like metal lathes work. They just have like a point taking off like a very, you know, a few thousandths at a time. So it's kind of the same idea, I think. But either way, the more surface that your cutter is grabbing onto the blank, the more force you're applying and the easier it is to kind of rip things apart. So you never want to just, you know, on a difficult blank, come in with a regular cutter square and just jam it in there. It's going to tear it apart, you know. That's why the round cutters are a pretty good option, because there's only a little bit that's actually contacting it, but it's even more than the corner of a square, you know, cutter. So just a couple other little things that you can maybe think about trying out, put in your quiver of tools to attack pen blanks with. Felt a little bit of a grab there. Let's see, what happened? Yeah, that black just barely kind of chipped a little bit right there. I think I'm going to actually give it another dosing. So like I was saying, when you start getting down to like a really thin part of where the, you know, like this resin and bamboo are touching, that's where this thing is very likely to rip out right here. And then this thing started kind of peeling away a little bit right there. The edges, the ends of it, there's just not a whole lot holding it in there. And, you know, again, if you kind of get it down really close and you just have a little bit of material left, you know, you can come in with, you know, a low grit sandpaper, coarse sandpaper, and just kind of finish the job up. Again, you don't really want to overheat it doing that though, when you're sanding, but it is a way to kind of get through things and make sure that, you know, you didn't just waste your time. Yeah, the belt sander. That kind of foamed up right there. That's weird. Never really had that happen before. I am getting to the bottom of my can of accelerator though. Might be more water in there than the accelerator product. Oh shoot, I got some on my lathe too. Let's see here. I'm gonna grab a scraper, maybe pop it off. Yeah. Another good reason to wax the bed of your lathe. CA glue will pop off. Okay, we're getting really close. We're so close to the end. I hope that we can get through this without it blowing up at the end here. All right, back to full speed. Oh, you're liking those blanks? Nice. Yeah, well, I don't know enough about the chemistry. The thing is, I like the mercury because it's not very aggressive, so I don't know what what the mixture is that they use, but it's a good one. I don't know what, like I said, the problem is it's in a can, and sometimes you can get some kind of, more moisture in the bottom of it. I don't know why it's foaming up, but think we're gonna make it. I don't know. Oh, we lost a little bit right there. All right, let's see where we're at here. Zoom you guys in. Yeah, we got a little chunk taken out right there. That sucks. There's like no way. I think it might have come out, but I'm trying to find that piece on the ground here. I don't know if that's going to happen. So let's just go with, it was probably a black chunk. So what we're going to do, I have some Starbond black. We're just going to fill that up with some CA glue. And I don't think anyone's even going to notice. That's not accelerating. What's happening here? Maybe I should have put on thinner layers. Kind of all came out at once. Didn't really mean to dump that much in there. We'll just let that kind of set up for a second. Yeah, I don't know, this stuff seems like it's taken forever. It's not, it is pretty old. I'll say that. I don't use black CA for a whole lot of stuff. You could, you know, another thing you could do is just add some, well, you could probably go with, I was gonna say UV resin, but that's not really, it's kind of hard to get that to add black dye to it and then get it to actually set up. Still a dip there. I'm gonna have to add a little bit more. I think this black stuff might be a little bit kind of spongy too. I don't know. Like I said, this one's kind of old. I think there's different ones, and different brands have different like colored CA glues. You're best off letting this set up for, like, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, but obviously we don't have that on the live stream to sit here and wait for this. So I'm just gonna try and fill it. It may be a little bit kind of spongy, but I think it'll work in the end. Yeah, CA with mica. There's lots of different ways to kind of fill in a hole. Stuff's really rubbery and sticky though. I don't know. I think before I go hog wild with my tool, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of sand that back a little bit and just see what's kind of happening under there. So I'll grab some, like, I think this is maybe like a 120. Just kind of sand at this a little bit, see what's going on. Oh, that's not too bad. All right, let's give the tool a try and see how that goes. Like I said, you're better off letting this sit for a while. A little bit longer than I'm giving it, but hopefully it'll stay together. Let's see what we got. Oh, that worked out okay. Not too bad. This stuff is a little bit kind of soft though. It's not a bad idea, Mike. Give it a little bit more accelerator. So overall, got a little bit to take off on this side. It's just a little bit proud of that bushing. Okay, I think we're good. We made it through this half. So I'm going to put a CA finish on this guy. That'll help kind of lock everything down and keep it good. One thing to note, that black CA kind of filled in some of the pores. So this little area isn't what I would call pristine. It's not like this. But at least it's in there. I don't think anyone's going to notice at the end when we get totally done with this. So I'm going to start with a 180 grit. Probably not going to do a whole lot of work with 180, but I just want to kind of quickly knock things down. It's a little lumpy and bumpy. I don't really want to take the tool to it anymore. On another blank, I'd probably try to smooth things out a little bit better with the tool. I don't feel like we have that luxury today on this blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this up to 400 grit. Then we're going to apply the CA finish. And then we'll polish that out all the way up. Okay. I'm going to clean it off with a little denatured alcohol. I'm not going to douse the heck out of it with the DNA. Just a little bit. Clear off as much of the sanding dust and stuff. And that'll also kind of clean up that bamboo. You can see it's nice and, you know, like light colored now without the sanding dust. So I think it's, when you're dealing with like a light wood like that, it's an even better idea to, you know, clean it off in between grits just to kind of clear off, because we got colors and we got, you know, sawdust and all kinds of different stuff going on there. That'll kind of clean that stuff up for you. All right, so we're moving on to 240 grit. And a little bit of denatured alcohol. .400 grit. And I'm using Abranet. I like that the best for doing this kind of stuff. I like the screen because you can just kind of flick it clean. You know, get the dust out of there every once in a while. Then you're not loading up and packing it onto the blank. So what's everybody working on in your shop? Any cool projects you got going? Actually, I'm pretty excited. So next week on the live stream, I have a shop accessory, let's call it. I'm not going to give you guys any hints until you see the thing, but we got a shop accessory, so like a useful kind of tool that we can use in the shop, and we're going to make it out of resin. So I'm pretty excited about that. And actually, the resin part of it actually has some benefits over making it this same thing out of something like wood in most cases. So it's going to be kind of fun. We're going to do something a little bit different and useful. I love that. I like useful projects that you can get some good utility out of. And depending, I might actually make another one for home. All kinds of clues, guys. You're probably not, I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to guess what we're making. Ooh, that's looking pretty good. Kind of random. Everything's all kind of crazy. But I like it. Okay, so we are looking good. Let's let me give this a slightly closer inspection. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay, I think we're good. One thing I like to do, I have this little 500 grit pad. And I like to just kind of, it's like kind of a less aggressive, but it'll kind of pop into like some of the crevices and stuff. So I like to hit it with that at the end. And it can just, sometimes you get a little bit of a scratch, you know, like that doesn't, I don't know, it's more aggressive than like the 400 grit from the Abranet. And the 500 will just kind of clean that up so you don't have any weird kind of scratches underneath the surface there before you put your CA finish on. You don't really want to go too much higher than like 600. I don't think if you're putting a finish on, it's not going to benefit you in any way. And you know, eventually you go too high and you know, again, you're starting to get into, you're applying a finish. You polish it up to like super high grit and then put a CA finish on it, you might actually have some issues of the CA grabbing a hold of it. So I don't like to go too high. Plus it's just more work, and this looks perfectly fine as it is. All right, so I'm just gonna hit it real quick with the super thin. I'm gonna zoom you guys out just a little bit. I'm going to apply it to the paper towel this time. And just apply a thin coat. That'll kind of soak in. I'm not going to use accelerator on this. I just want it to kind of lay down some finish. Very thin like that. Alan's casting blanks. Making pen pot. What's a pen pot? Pen pot. Working in stock for the mate. Oh, Mid-Atlantic. Wait, what is mate? I'm not sure what mate is. Yeah, it does kind of look like skateboards. Yeah, that's true. Huh. Nice. Hey, what's up, Carl? Carl's making a mold. What kind of mold? All right, now for the actual finish, I like to use the Mercury Thin Flex. It's just, it works well with the way that I apply it. It just kind of, you go on, goes on smooth. It doesn't leave a lot of ridges. But you do want to use an accelerator with the flex versions of these Mercuries. They're made to be used with the accelerator, and they're made to be finishes. So they will set up on their own, but they fully set with the accelerator. So I just kind of prefer putting on, you know, a bunch of coats of the thin flex, and we're good. There's lots of different ways to put a CA finish on, you know. Some people like to put on like a thin coat first, kind of like what I do, and then they move to like medium for like 3 coats, or you know, there's all kinds of different methods of doing it, and it doesn't really matter. They all work. It's just whatever method is, you know, works for you. But the name of the game is you got to get it on and get it smooth as possible. Minimize the like ridges. And so again, there's like different techniques. Like I don't really apply a bunch of pressure when I'm putting this on. It's just thin. The spinning motion of the lathe helps it kind of lay down, and that's how I do it. I just kind of get on, get off, move on, and then hit it with accelerator. I think that, and I may be wrong because I just don't do it this way, but I think that the idea behind the medium is you put a little dot of medium, and then you're actually putting more pressure to kind of spread it on. I may be wrong. Does anybody do it that way? Is that kind of the way? And that way you're not really leaving bumps and lumps. But if you had like a thicker viscosity and you didn't really apply much pressure, you kind of get thicker ridges, I find. So that's why I don't use it that way, because the way that I apply it isn't conducive to using that really. I end up getting pretty big ridges, and I end up sitting there sanding forever. Whereas if I just put a bunch of, you know, maybe in some cases I might have to put on more coats, but I'd rather put on a bunch of thin coats. And that's actually kind of how you want to do it in like finishing for just woodworking. You're not going to glob on a thick coat of, you know, polyurethane. You're going to put a bunch of thin coats, even like lacquers, any of those types of things. You put lots of thin coats, and that's kind of the way it goes. So I kind of came from that background or mentality in just the woodworking realm, to where I'd rather put on more thinner coats. I apply a little bit of pressure, I guess. I don't know. Once you get your technique, then, you know, the combination of, you know, the pressures you apply, how you put it on, and the product that you use is going to get you to the point where it's just easy when you combine the right factors. Let's see here. Mid-Atlantic, oh, Turning Expo. They're not calling it Pen Turners Gatherings anymore? That's where I got screwed up. Everybody's calling it a Turning Expo now. A pen pot has a large hole in the middle for multiple pen. Oh, I see. Oh, like a cup. Oh, that wasn't a very good coat. It was a little too dry. Needed some more finish. Ah, you're doing a demo. Nice. Carl did some casting. Let's see. Oh, a mold of the state of Idaho. That's cool. Oh, sweet. That's actually something I'd like to do, a mold of Nevada. Oh, 12, okay, so large hole in the middle. 12 small holes around. Oh, okay, I see. That's cool. I didn't read the whole thing. Ah, Boise State colors, nice. We actually, we did a little tour of the Pacific Northwest last summer. Was it summer? I think it was summer. And we stopped at Boise on the way back. I've never been there before. It's kind of weird because we live, you know, I'm pretty close to to Boise. Reno's not that far away, but just never been there. Never had a reason to go to Idaho. That was actually the first time I've ever been to Idaho, which is also kind of odd considering it's pretty close, but like I said, just never had a reason to go. Boise was pretty cool. Very similar to Reno. I really kind of felt like I was just in like maybe a slightly bigger feeling or slightly different feeling Reno. The mountains around there, it all kind of looked, I don't need that. It all kind of looked like, reminded me of Reno. So it was kind of cool. All right, so we got our finish on. Now let's, I'm just gonna do a little bit of sanding with the 400 to knock off. There, again, it's almost impossible. I don't know of any method of applying a finish to a pen where you're gonna get it on absolutely perfect, you know, off the applicator, let's say. Always got to kind of smooth things out, make it like glass, and then you're good to go. But the less of that sanding that you know have to do, the better. Okay, so that surface looks pretty decent. I got most of those ridges out, I think. Now we're going to move on to the wet sanding phase. Which is great because I can turn the dust collector off. Doug, what's up, man? Home Relax made a set of drumsticks. That's sweet. I like that. Clyde puts on 12 coats of thin, yeah. 2 thin and 6 medium. Okay, yeah. So you're one of the medium people. There's a lot of people that do it that way. I tried it, like I said, and it just I was like, I don't know. Especially like, you know, when you kind of get, I don't know, if you start going down a path and you have kind of a way of doing things, a lot of times it doesn't work the other way. Is kind of another thing that I found. You know, like I was kind of used to doing kind of thin coats, and I don't know, like I said, the technique that I was using did not work with the medium very well. Ended up being more work than just doing it the other way. But in some cases, the medium can kind of fill in, you know, grain or like little pinholes sometimes if you do it right. So many different ways of doing things. A panda pen, that's cool. I like it. Is it blurry? Here, how about that? Maybe that's better. My camera crew is dropping the ball. All right, we'll move on to the gray. So this is the Zona paper. It's actually a 3M product. 3M makes it, but it's branded Zona, and it's like micro mesh basically. But I like it being thinner. I can kind of feel how much. That was one of the problems that I had with the micro mesh pads. There was like a big rubber thing or, you know, spongy thing in between, and I could never really feel. I didn't feel like it would follow contours and things as well, and I had no feeling in my fingers with it. So I like the thin papers better. I feel like I have more of an idea of how much pressure I'm applying and where that pressure's being applied, I guess. And I also just like that micro mesh actually makes a thin paper as well, but it's all different shades of gray. It's literally like 50 shades of gray paper. And so you have no clue what number, what grit you're using. And there's actually more of them to get to the same micron level. So this stuff is technically faster than that. I don't even go through. I just do. I've been doing up to blue. So there's just the 3rd level. I think there's like 5. Pink. There's maybe 6. Pink is next, and then turquoise, and then white, I believe. But I usually just do either up to gray or sometimes up to blue. And then I do the magic juice. Final polish. Kid Cooper's here. What's up? Better late than never. Yeah, why not? You don't have to be here on time necessarily. Although we did have some trials and tribulations. Once again, we got some stuff that the insides of those bamboo tubes are kind of smooth. I had no clue. The outsides are not really. They weren't really smooth. And so I thought it was going to be a really good bond, and the inside's not so much. So we were kind of battling this stuff. I had to go really slow, gluing some pieces back in. It was another one. The next pen blanks we make are going to be a lot easier. We're going to use a material that sticks to resin. All right, so we got our magic juice. Let's get that going. And I've been kind of playing around with this. Really, you could probably get away with just buying the number 1 and like 2, maybe up to like 3, and that's going to give you a pretty nice looking pen. There's no reason not to go to 6, but I can't see a big difference between going to just 3, like stopping at 3 and going to 6. There's not a huge difference. So if you're in a hurry, let's say, you could probably just apply a couple steps of the magic juice and kind of move on with your life, rather than have to go through all 6 steps. Not that they take that long, but if you're in a huge rush, like I said. The one we did last week was just up to 3, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what we did. I can't remember for sure, but and it turned out great. So I'm going to do all 6 steps this week. Why not? We got time. All right, so this magic juice, you just apply it, and then you want to go around 1,500 to 2,000 RPM, somewhere in that range. I find works pretty well. You don't need to this isn't a friction polish. This is just, a polishing compound. So you don't need to press really hard or do any of that. Just let it do its magic juice. And once it's kind of, you've gotten through it, then I just wipe off any excess and move on. But I mean, you can see after step 1, I mean, that thing, you could walk away after step 1 and just be like, that's good. It's pretty darn good after just 1 step. But we got 5 more to go. Let's see here. Let's scoot this up and see what's going on. I lost the 18 and snow in there. Oof. Oh, good. Finally, there's been some snow on the eastern half of the U.S. there. We're getting snow tonight, actually, again. How did I know they're not? Hold on a minute. How did I know there were not the section blocks? I'm not entirely sure what you're asking, Steve. It's not like, if you're asking about the bamboo, they're just sticks. It's not like raw bamboo pieces. What you think of, like, they're like straws almost. I'm not sure if that was what you were asking. Sections. David does 3 thin, 1 medium, and 2 thick. Wow. I actually haven't heard of 3 different viscosities before. That's a new one for me. All right, step 2. I find that the number 2 tends to want to grab. I don't know if it's just this bottle has like maybe less, of whatever makes it more liquid. It's more dry, let's say, in the bottle, my bottle specifically, for some reason. But for some reason, the number 2 seems grabby. So I have to kind of apply a little bit more pressure, or else it ends up wrapping up the paper towel on me. Made it through there. And then number 3. And I'm using, these are a little bit less abrasive than the white paper towels that I was using before. This is a tough subject because really what I'd want is something that is totally non-abrasive to be polishing with, but typically those things are like cloths. And I'm not gonna, I was just told you that the number 2 likes to wrap up. Well, you don't want your, whatever you're applying it with to wrap up, and it can hurt you if it doesn't rip like paper towels. And so I haven't really found, maybe there must be like some sort of paper towel that's non-abrasive. I haven't really found it. If anybody knows of something, a product I can look into, that would be great. Like, and what I'm kind of looking for is something like paper towels where it's on a roll, the same idea, it's just non-abrasive. That would be fabulous. I just don't know if they have those. I don't know of it offhand. Hit and miss with the medium, yeah. David's got it down to no ridges. Oh, come on, Doug. You can turn a pen. Pens are easy. You do all thin coats too, Brian? Yeah. It's funny because like everybody's kind of got their own little methods of doing CA finishes. That's why it's kind of tough, because a lot of people are like, oh, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, And I think this year I think I am gonna. Wow, I put too much on. I think I am going to do a video on how I do my CA finishes. Everybody that watches the streams, obviously you guys know, but there's a lot of people that don't want to watch streams or replays. And it's just probably not a bad video to put up in general for like general viewers. So I'll probably do that eventually. But it's funny because it really kind of depends. The way that I figured it out, I had to try like everybody's method, like try a bunch of different ways that I saw people doing it, and just kind of settle on what worked, which way worked best, and kind of tweak it to my own, In some cases you just need to keep practicing something, like pick one and just keep doing it. Sometimes though, it just like the technique, you got to pick the right technique and then kind of do a little bit of practice. But a lot of times I find that people find a technique to do it with, sometimes even just the right product also in combination, and it kind of clicks for them. They may struggle trying to do it one way for years or months or whatever, and then they try like a new method, and they're like, oh, this is easy. One of the problems I had, I was using a Shopsmith. That was my first like real lathe, or quote unquote, like first lathe that I was turning pens with, and the tailstock on that thing like wobbled. So like it was a piece of junk. So, so that was tough. If the thing was moving around on you, you're not going to get it round, basically. That sucks. It's hard to put a finish on when you're trying to like sand something that's not round. And then even with my Comet, I was using mandrels, and like it didn't matter which mandrel, like brand new mandrels out of the box, even with mandrel savers and every other thing, they would just be slightly bent. They wouldn't run true. And so I finally switched to the TBC bushings, and that changed everything. Then CA finishes were like easy to put on because the blank was running true, and I wouldn't sand. What ends up happening is if your blank's not running true and you're sanding, what I would do is sand through one little spot. It was the weirdest thing, and I could, for forever, I had no clue what was going on, but I would just sand through one spot on one side of a blank, and it's because it was wobbling, it was moving. So that looks pretty darn good, guys. What do you think? Like I said, it kind of reminds me of like a pool cue. I like the skateboards idea too. That wasn't a bad idea. Kind of does look like that. Hopefully it's focused. Looking pretty glossy and nice. All right, so let's get this magic juice out of the way. Now again, I'm always careful, when you get done with this, putting a CA finish on, one thing that can happen is you may have some CA glue kind of hanging off the end that, may kind of be going on to your bushings. So when you get everything apart, you may have some excess CA glue. And you want to be careful of that, number one, but you also want to get it off of there before you assemble your pen. So and I got, this one's a little bit stuck, feels like. So what I do, I just tap it on my tailstock down there. And that just helps that finish to kind of break loose. Then we're good. But by doing that, you know, there could be little chunks kind of hanging off the end. So what I do is, this is the only reason I have a mandrel. I just reference it on the stem, the shaft, and then I have some, what is that, 240 grit on the end there. And just get rid of any excess that's hanging off that might have kind of slid between the bushing and the end there. That's another one. You may not even have a chunk hanging off, but some CA glue may have kind of, you know, gotten in between the bushing and the end of the, you know, the barrel there, the end of the blank. And again, when you're pressing the parts in, if there's excess material connected to the top of the finish and you're pressing on it, it can crack your finish. And it just, talk about heartache. And you got to redo the finish. And that ain't fun. So that one's good to go. Okay. Now I do have, so I was talking about paper towel things. I found these. My only problem is I'm not sure if this is actually non-abrasive. I mean, it's way smoother or, you know, softer than even those blue paper towels. But the problem is it's so thin that the stuff just, I don't know where it goes. It's odd using this to apply the polish. This is the, what is this called? This is called, I got a pack of it somewhere here. Where did I put it? Oh, where is it? It's called, here it is. Scrub It. Reusable wipes. It's like weird. It doesn't feel, it's like the magic juice gets like absorbed by it somehow. I don't know. It's weird. It's just a little bit different. So that's something that is probably non-abrasive, but I don't know. I don't love it. Plus it gets your fingers all magic juicy. Okay, so blank number 2. Let's see here. Did I show you guys the blank? Yeah, I kind of showed it to you. Let's get a close-up of this thing. Pretty cool looking. I like it. Somebody mentioned it kind of reminds them of skateboards. Kind of does there too. I kind of like how it's like, it's not like an even pattern, you know? It's kind of cool. Okay, so let's see here. Get our second blank. So I'm going to be careful off the bat. The first one, if you didn't see the turning of the first one, the first one kind of tore out. I had a big chunk tear out on me, like right away when we were getting it round. And what it is when you get down to just, there's a little bit of this material that, you know, inside the tube, it just tends to want to pop out. Like this thing is probably just going to rip out right away. That doesn't matter because we're going to turn through that. But that's kind of what happened is I started turning it down and I had a big chunk pop out on me that we had to glue back in. That's pretty easy to fix. If that happens, if like the entire thing comes out, you just stick it back in, use some CA glue. But where things get tough is when you start getting down to the bottom and, you know, you like we had to fill with that black stuff. When you can't turn away more material and you have a little divot and you can't find the piece to glue back in, that's where you're kind of hosed. So like I said, I'm going to be a little careful. I already applied a bunch of CA glue, like doused this blank we didn't douse the other one, so I'm hoping maybe this will help out a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it kind of looks like a pool cue. I don't know. Oh, that's cool, yeah. Oh, I already have Brian's TBC bushings. Yep. Actually, I just bought a big set of them. So I'm using the one thing that's cool, and I finally realized, I think those other ones were from you, the cigar. He puts a different chamfer on the insides. I don't want to take the other one apart, but I don't know what you call that, chamfer. There's like a little, I don't even know if this is picking up. In the inside there, because there's 4 bushings, right, for this set, and they match. Like there's like a little bit of a kind of a chamfer on the insides of these, and they're 2 different ones. So these 2 match, and there's a different kind of chamfer on the other one, so you know which ones are supposed to go with which side of the blank, which blank of a 2-piece pen. It's really cool. But yeah, I like Brian's the best. The machining is just perfect, absolutely perfect on them. They fit amazing. Everything's good to go. Oh, I got some bushing. So what I do also, so there's probably a little bit of CA glue on these guys, and I just dunk them in a vat of acetone. That'll dissolve it. I need to get some out right now so I can put these guys in. I got the ones from last week still in there. Junior gents. One thing that I'm excited about with I was saying that I just bought some bushings from Brian. I got the spider pen kit bushings, so I'm excited to pick some of those up and use one of the spider web 3D print blanks. Probably won't do it until, where did I put that? Oh, there. Probably won't do it until Halloween. That might be my Halloween project next year, or around that time maybe. We'll see. But pretty excited because that spider pen kit is pretty cool. It's like the perfect match with that blank. Nice, yeah, he makes great bushings. And the Alumilite jug caps or whatever. I will say that I don't know if they switched jugs or not, but I decided to try out. They sent me a replacement jug for Alumilite Clear. I haven't bought an actual gallon of Alumilite Clear for years because I just buy the 10-gallon kits. But if they've changed the caps and the jugs, like whatever they sent me, that stuff's been working reasonably well. It hasn't been sticking. I also try to kind of keep it clean, but I was doing that with my other jugs, and man, those things were terrible. Cap would just be stuck on the part B for Alumilite Clear. So he's got some good silicone plugs that make things easier. Okay, so let's get on to this thing. Let's see, I'm going to stop real quick and see if we missed any. Viva paper towels, huh? Okay. Dry wipes. Cotton, like a paper towel, okay. Non-textured, okay. Viva, I'll check that out. Craft board, huh? Yeah, it's not for applying CA glue, it's for polishing stuff. I actually, this is the like technique methods of doing things. I actually kind of utilize the fact that it absorbs. I like using the white paper towels, the Bounty, for CA finishes personally. So that's just part of the way that I do everything, but Tim's at LAX. Nice. What are you doing there? Oh yeah, the adapters are awesome too. And the thing is, you know, there's a lot of times, like, there's certain pen kits that I have the bushings for. I bought them before, so I have the bushings for them, but I don't turn enough of that pen ever to really want to go buy bushings specifically. And so at that point, you know, the adapters are just awesome because, you know, they'll work with anything that you've already got, and they work well for that. For things that you turn a lot of, I highly recommend just getting a set of the TBC bushings for that kit if they have them. And Brian can make them for any kit too. He'll do custom stuff. But, you know, I turn a lot of cigars, Sierras, and Juniors. And so, for those ones, I want to have, the less things that are connecting the two centers to your blank, the better. I think you're kind of splitting hairs if you're, talking about the adapters. However, it's just less complex, it's simpler. And it's going to run even truer the less little components that you have on there. So, for things you do a lot of, definitely recommend just getting a set of, bushings made for that kit. But for things that you don't do a lot of and you already have the bushings, I mean, adapters work excellent. Okay, so let's stop yakking. Let's do some turning. Okay, turn the dust collector on. Turn the speed up. Traveling back. Where were you coming from? Now again, I had problems on the first blank, so I'm going to be going extremely careful on this. As careful as I can be to hopefully not get a bunch of chip outs. All right, so far so good. We haven't really gotten that far into it yet, but everything's playing nicely right now. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Still haven't had a lot of progress here, but it's starting to get kind of round. I do think that our CA treatment, I mean, it obviously helped, because I think these little bits would have ripped out otherwise. So while we're stopped here, I don't think it's a bad idea to give it another treatment. CA glue, pen turner's friend. I'm just going to douse the heck out of it, let it think about it. And the super thin, you know, what I want to do is let it kind of soak in a little bit before I hit it with the accelerator. Oh, it's dripping. Okay. What that's doing is just hopefully, you know, any weak spots, any areas where like these resin chunks on the inside of those bamboo sticks, or wherever, if there's any areas that are not, you know, solid in there, it'll kind of find its way into any little cracks and just kind of give it a little bit of help, keep things together. Using all of my tech. Nice. Oh, you're all right, Paul. You're just in time for the second blank. We made it through the first one, even though it was a little bit, it was fighting me a little bit, but we made it through. The insides of those bamboo sticks are pretty smooth and the resin doesn't love it. Got some chipping and stuff on the first one, so I'm going very careful on these, on the turning. Another CA glue day. You need like a dust collection system. Depending on what all you do, for like pens and probably even stoppers and stuff, Rockler's got like an attachment that you can, I think you can hook up just like a shop vac to. I don't love it because it kind of covers things up a little bit, but you might look into it, right? It's a little thing, kind of, you know, it's pretty simple, and I think it just hooks to like a shop vac. Shop vacs are pretty loud, I don't know, but that's not a bad way to go. You can get kind of small dust collectors, like even Rockler's got like the Dust Right systems. So they got kind of, you know, small dust collectors. There's all kinds of different options out there though for dust collection. Ah, got a chunk. Where did I don't even see where that went. Oh, I found it, I think. that's the way it goes. All right, so we're gonna telling you, these things are fighting me today. This is a medium thick. I just don't want it to run all over the place. And I'm just going to use the cap to kind of press it down in there. And grab a can of accelerator. So again, as long as you can find the piece, if it's big enough to just, if you can find it and glue it back in, it's not really a big deal. It's not gonna hurt anything too bad. Yeah, I really couldn't handle dealing with a lathe that I'd have to change belts to get different speeds. That would drive me nuts. Is there a wire brush like oh, yeah, you can maybe like scuff it. I just didn't even know that it was smooth on the inside like that. I thought, because the outsides didn't seem like it was going to be a problem, but I think that the insides are a lot more smooth. You use your rougher? Yeah. I used to when I first started, but I kind of switched to, when I was still using like the traditional gouges and stuff, I would just use a spindle gouge. And then, but one thing that I found on resin blanks, using a spindle gouge, I would actually put like a bowl gouge angle on it. And that worked a lot better, having that kind of higher angle. I actually did it on accident and then realized, because I sharpened a bowl gouge and didn't realize that I hadn't switched my, like moved the sharpening setup, the Wolverine jig thing. And so I had used it forever at this higher angle, but I would just leave it, because I always used it at the same thing. But it's not like I checked the angles typically. I just, because I didn't change it that much. And so I would just kind of set it up so that it was the same angle as the tool. And then I realized, one day I actually measured it and realized that it was like a 50-degree angle, or I'm not sure what the number was, but, and I was like, oh. So I tried doing it with like just a normal angle spindle gouge. And I found that the bowl gouge angle was better, so I just kept it that way. But then I switched to carbide eventually. When the negative rate cutters came out, it just was kind of a no-brainer for me. They work so good. All right, Chris, have a good one. Yeah, I don't change. This has technically 2 belts, but I never change it. If I was doing like a super heavy, bowl or something like that, I might switch to the lower setting. All right, so everything's going pretty good, it seems like. So far. All right, let's stop and see the progress real quick. Get you guys kind of closer in here. Can't see the, there we go. There we go. Wow, I like that. That's looking kind of cool. It's gonna be different when we get done, but not too shabby. Still got a ways to go on this thing. This one's, I think this is the one that we glued back in. It's starting to kind of, the edges are looking a little bit like I think it needs a little bit more glue. So let's do that real quick. I'll just give it a little bit of help. I really don't know why it's foaming up. I mean, in such weird like areas. I think it's just because my accelerator's like almost empty. That stuff never foams up CA glue usually. You gonna be too chicken? Yeah. I think we can make it. I made the first one. Well, actually, Tim, I was meaning to ask you, did you get the mold yet? Should be coming pretty soon. think. I don't know if you got the actual shipping notice, because I ended up, it was actually cheaper to ship it through Pirate Ship than Shopify, which really kind of makes me mad. That a free service is giving me better rates than Shopify on shipping, but whatever. Man, it's looking cool. Now we just got to get through it. It always gets so worrisome at the end. Oh, you mentioned it above. Sorry about that. I didn't see it. Sweet. Have you used it yet, though? Did I miss that, too? I didn't see that. Nice. Yeah, I love those. He bought one of the Gatling molds. It is very nice, because I actually just poured a few different things that I have to use PVC pipes still. And I haven't done that for a while. And I was like, it's quite nice using the silicone molds. And it really does save me quite a bit on the mold release, because I don't use mold release on my, the vertical silicone molds. But when I was kind of practicing and trying to kind of get my groove with the vertical pouring, I was going through a ton of that stuff. Which is not that expensive, but man, I'll tell you what, it's just so much easier not having to do that every time. So I'm pretty happy with it. All right, we are really close. It is definitely time to hit this again with some CA glue before disaster strikes. Just give it a little bit of a helping hand. That stuff soak in a little bit. Oh, it arrived when you were traveling. Okay, cool. All right, let's hope that's the last application of CA glue before we put the finish on. Now, I kind of mentioned it on the last half of the pen, you know, blank half. A lot of times I'll kind of leave my blanks pretty thick, and part of it has to do with, you know, making sure that I get through a blank, you know. Part of it has to do with I'd rather kind of leave more material. I just like that. But it does kind of help if you don't turn it super thin all the way through. That's just going to increase the likelihood, you know, you're turning more off, right? So this is kind of maybe a little bit of a cheat. I don't know. If you go for like the thicker in the middle, you just have less chances that it's going to blow up anyway. All right, let's see. All right, Steve, have a good night. 350. Yeah, I know, it's actually pretty surprising. Yeah, the big molds, I mean, you know, and that's another thing for me. I sell a lot of blanks. We've had inflation. I mean, the cost of resin has gone up probably 30%, but I haven't changed my prices yet. And so that was another thing. I was like, well, you know, if I kind of switch some of these blanks over to vertical, and I'm pouring less and taking also less time, but I'm also not cutting, you know, a significant portion away, then I'm saving money on resin and I don't have to raise my prices. This thing's pretty cool where it has kind of this is the resin that's around the tube on the ends and then one in the middle. That's kind of neat looking. You guys see that? So I think I'm just going to take a little bit more off this end. Hesitant to do a lot of fussing about with this thing, but it's a little bit proud up to the bushing over here. A little thick in the middle as well. Okay. I think that was brave enough. Let's do a little bit of sanding. I gotta be honest, I don't think I need to start at 180 on this. I got a pretty smooth surface, I think, so let's take a look at this. Yeah, that's not too bad. It's a little bumpy here and there. Let's start with 180 grit. Just kind of smooth stuff out here and there. All right, move on to 240. First I'll wipe it off with some denatured alcohol. All right, that's good. Have a good flight, Tim. Enjoy that mold when you get there. Can't wait to hear how it goes and what you make. All right. All right, we're almost ready. We're gonna hit it with some of that 500 grit with the pad really quickly here. Looks like we got a little bit of a chip or something. I don't know what's going on there. I'm gonna have to fill that with CA real quick. I don't know if I can really get close enough to show that or not, but it's like a, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe like a pinhole, kind of a crack. I don't know. Something's going on right there, and I don't like it. All right, so we're gonna go back to the 400, and I'm gonna try and just see if I can get that off real quick with the 400. A little bit on the bottom there too. Probably could have used like a medium CA on this, but all right, I'm going to actually go back up to 240, try and take that down. Still got a little bit of a pinhole there. So I'm going to try this medium thick. Try and kind of fill that up. Pesky pinholes. There we go. Got it that time. Alright, now we got to go take it back up to 400. So I'll wipe this off, do another round with the 400 grit, and then the little 500 pad, and we will be good to go. Hey, what's up, Donna? Sorry, I was kind of paying attention to the pesky pinhole. I gotta be honest, I'm pretty excited after like 2 cuts on the first blank and it kind of blew apart. Didn't blow apart, but big chunk popped out like right out the gate. I'm pretty happy we got through both of these pretty well unscathed. Not too much problem. Definitely wasn't a breeze, but it wasn't that bad. We got through it. Slowly but surely. All right, a little bit of denatured alcohol, then we'll hit it with that 500 pad, and we can finish this guy up. "15 years old, wow." All right, let's get you guys a view of this thing. It's looking pretty good. Oh, sorry, I had it zoomed way in while I was doing that. Woo, pretty neat looking. I like the way those things look. It's kind of funny with these little dots of wood. Not bad, not bad. All right, let's zoom out a little bit. So again, I'm gonna just hit it with a little bit of the super thin, just wiped on. And that'll just kind of soak into any areas that maybe need it. I'm gonna let it just, you know, cure on its own. I'm not gonna use the accelerator. Let it kind of soak in. And then for the final coats, I'm going to use the Thin Flex. All right, put a little dab on. And I'll put like 6 to 8 coats, somewhere around there. A lot of times if the surface isn't smooth, that's when I have to put more coats on. But the surface of these things are actually really pretty smooth. The bamboo doesn't have a lot of grain or anything. It's not like you have to fill that. There's not a lot of texture to it or anything. And again, with the flex versions of the Mercury, they have a medium and a thin. You want to be using the accelerator. It's part of the process. And I'm running out of accelerator. It's on order. Should have enough to get through the pen though. I'm not that worried. looking pretty good. One more and then we'll move on to some sanding and polishing and assembling. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go with 400 grit first and just kind of smooth everything out. Then we'll move to our polishing papers. Okay. It's looking pretty good. You don't really need to do a lot. As long as you've gotten it on pretty relatively smooth. Shouldn't have to spend a lot of time, you know, with the lower grits, 400 or anything lower than that. You should be able to, and if you've gotten it on really good, you know, you can actually just move on to your polishing papers, and that'll be okay. All right, last one. The blue. Okay, magic juice time. Wipe off any water we got there. All right, here we go. I gotta go get more blue paper towels. So is anybody already planning to go to Turner's Warehouse on February 17th for the demos and all the fun stuff that they're gonna be doing? I will be there. It's going to be a good time. So it's the 17th. I think it's the 17th and 18th. It's going to be demos. I'm actually doing, we haven't set all this stuff up. I think that you're probably going to be able to just like order it or, you know, sign up for it on the Turner's Warehouse website, but I don't know the details yet. But one-on-ones, there's going to be 2 spots available. So when I find out more about that, if anybody's interested in doing that, it's going to be like whatever kind of topic you want to do. You know, I would, you know, resin casting probably focus, but any kind of thing that you want to do with that. Like I said, more details when I know them. We've got more magic juice on the way too. This thing's almost... There we go, we got it. Starting to run low. All right, step one of the magic juice polish. Get this thing going. I go around 1500, 15 to 17 myself. I just find that it works the best at that speed. Don't need to put a lot of pressure on. Let it do its job. Oh man, I'm telling you. Beautiful. Okay, step two. Yeah. Definitely come out. That would be cool. I'm telling you, magic juice, I was blown away. I was like, people were like, oh, you got to try it. And I'm like, you know, when you get kind of set in your ways, you're like, but I know how to, you know, the way I do it works fine. I've heard that a million times, you know, from other people. Because I was like a big proponent of using buffing wheels for a long time. And people would be like, oh, I use micro mesh and it's fine. And then they would try the buffing wheels and they'd be like, whoa, works great. And that's what I used forever. And then so I got into that, like, but I know how to do it and it works, my method works fine. And I gave it a try and I was like, wow. It's faster, it works better, and it's easy. I was like, okay. Nothing in life comes like this. Copperal, what's up? Oh, nice. Even better. Even more reason to come out to Gilbert. Oh, and it's such a beautiful time of year out there, too. I was seriously considering driving and bringing my mountain bike, but it's going to take so long. It's like, that's going to be 4 days of driving. And I'm like, In fact, I was even thinking about maybe bringing my snowboard, if I drove, bring my snowboard and stop at Mammoth on the way down. Get some snowboarding in, but I just don't have, like, 2 weeks to take off for all these things. Someday, maybe. Not right now. Oh man, we rented the worst movie the other day. What the heck was the name of it? We didn't rent it. We didn't pay for it. It was on Netflix. Dang, what was the? I don't even remember the name of it. It was the guy that plays Deadpool, Ryan. What's his name? He was in it, and it looked like it might have been good. It was absolutely horrible. Forget the name of that now. Buffing wheels work really well, and I still like buffing wheels for like larger things. But I am totally sold on this Magic Juice for pens. It just gets glossier. It's easier. You don't have to, like, you know, change things over. Like, I do have my buffing wheels set up on a different lathe, so I don't have to set stuff up. But, you know, most people don't have like another lathe set up for buffing. So you'd have to like convert everything over. You know, it's just kind of a hassle compared to just continuing going from the sanding steps. And like I said, it's faster, better, and it's easy. There's like no drawbacks to the Magic Juice. All right, oh man, that's looking pretty good. What was the name of that? So the premise was he was like this billionaire, and all these people, he was trying to like right all these, you know, these wrongs in the world. But it was just terrible writing, pretty bad acting, honestly. No, yeah, Ryan Reynolds. Not a Christmas movie. It was like a, I don't know, action movie. It was terrible. I mean, really bad. What was the name of it? It was like, it started to get unbearable. Like, we're like, is it over yet? You know? It was like the kind of like, you know, a lot of action. So it had like where the, you know, like the one-liner, the action hero one-liners, like the whole movie was like that. That's all it was. And it just really started to annoy me. I don't know. I wasn't too excited about it. All right, so let's pop this guy off of here. Oh, I should have turned the dust collector off during the water phase. All right, so I'm just going to tap this on my tailstock to pop the bushings loose. Pull out the mandrel. And we'll clean up the ends so that there's no extra CA glue kind of hanging off that we could end up cracking the finish with. Okay. I'm going to pop those bushings. They probably have a little bit of CA glue on them. So I'm popping those in my jar of acetone. Let that soak. It'll get rid of the CA glue on there. I'm going to switch to the other camera real quick, and I'm going to get some gloves on as well. Put down the paper towel. Sony cam, there we go. Okay. Oh, I didn't even pick a kit for this yet. Huh. Okay, so you got our components there. Let's see here. Going with a cigar. I'm thinking chrome. Probably the way to go. Maybe even like gunmetal. I got a gunmetal one. That'd be kind of cool. Let's do that. Kind of a darker chrome. Oh man, some assembly required. Let's see what the chat's doing here. No, it's not Deadpool. Oh, what was it called? I'm just going to sign into my Netflix real quick. Oh, come on. There we go. Let's see here. What was it called? Hopefully it's not going to start playing something. Did I? Oh man, I don't know. It was called. Oh no. Shh. Okay, I gotta quit. I'm gonna get demonetized. Stupid Netflix. I don't know what the name of it was. It was terrible though. Okay. Let's see here. We got a lot of components here. So sometimes these cigar kits come like with every single piece in different bags, and that's not very fun. 6 Underground. Yeah, that's it. It was terrible. Oh my God. You liked it? Really? I thought it was horrible. I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood, but it just seemed terribly cheesy and I don't know. All right, so we got our that. This. Take this guy off here. There. Okay, we got everything. Let's see what this thing looks like. Are you guys ready for some assembly? A little bit tight. We're good. There we go. One of the nice things also about the cigar kits is you can line the blanks up after the fact. You don't have to worry about, pressing the parts and getting everything all lined up perfectly. The way things work, they just come apart, the two parts. So you can line them up anytime and correct it, at your leisure without having to like disassemble anything. You just pull it apart. All right, so let's see here. This goes like this, like that. Trying to see where I like that. I don't think I like that. I think I kind of like maybe splitting these two parts. I'm going to kind of bend this clip out a little bit. Ooh, I kind of like that. Yep, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to have it where the front of the blank has the red and the black, and then we're going to kind of split it with the clip. Oh, don't roll off the table there, buddy. Okay. Ooh, these tubes are tight. Don't worry, I think everything's okay. Okay, I don't know what that noise was. Let me put our ink in, and then like I said, all you have to do is just line up the parts, you know, line up the blanks how you want it. And I'm just going to double check and make sure that my ink works correctly. That's fine. And I'm also going to kind of find the center of it, you know, fully retracted, let's say. And so you just press the two parts together, and so you can line it up real easily. But wow, that's looking pretty darn good. It's got a lot of stuff going on in there. There's a lot of things happening. Pretty cool though. I'm trying to get, it's pretty shiny, so I'm trying to find some angle without so much glare. Pretty cool. It was challenging. I ain't even gonna lie at all. That was a pretty challenging pen to turn, but I think in the end it was totally worth it. So what do you guys think? There's no glare there. Ooh. Pretty cool. Yeah, I'm telling you, the red, the black, that it just reminds me of a pool cue to me. Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne Johnson. Which one is that? Reynolds and Dwayne Johnson. Oh, was that the Red? Yeah, Red Notice. I think I watched Red Notice. Sounds like I did. I think I like that one. I don't know. Cool. Don't worry, I'll send it. I'll just send it, man. Yeah, pretty sweet. I'm happy with that. I like the Blurple mix. Didn't really like it's not, you know, like in your face. There was a lot of stuff going on, and so I think the Blurple mix, where we add the Blurple, the blue to purple color shift, you can see it, and it does do a little bit of shifting, but you don't see a lot of the glitter that we put in there. So that's one thing that when you pack a lot of stuff in, sometimes that doesn't come out, you know, up to the front. Got a little bit of sparkle in those areas. That's kind of cool. Interesting. It's a different looking pen. I really like that thing. So anyway, that was a long one, guys. I appreciate you guys sticking around for the end of that. Definitely, like I said, definitely worth it though. And so for the folks that have the subscription boxes, just be warned a little bit. You know, you have kind of the same thing where you're going to have like lengthwise, you know, the bamboo things are going to be running lengthwise. We'll have to see if there's any difference. I don't know if there would be any difference in those. I don't imagine there would be, compared to casting, you know, resin in the tube first, then casting the tubes. I just, you know, shoved the tubes in there. So we'll have to see, you know, what the feedback is from the folks that are the subscribers on those blanks. But if you do use these bamboo sticks, just, you know, be aware. They're pretty smooth, I guess, on the inside, and so you might, I guess they're pretty smooth on the outside, but we didn't have anything like ripping apart on the outside of these things. It was really all the parts that came out were on the insides. And I think that if you did it, I have a feeling if you do it, if you arrange these things, now you're still going to have the same issues when it gets down thin. So I don't think that it really matters which way you cast the bamboo sticks. I think you're still going to have, if it gets down to the point where there's just a little tiny piece of resin on the inside, it still probably will come apart. So that's not very fun. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this thing come together. It was pretty cool. It was a fun casting last week too, and a pretty cool turning. Like I said, a little bit challenging, but it was really fun to do, and it, you know, the results are pretty good too. So hopefully the subscription box folks will get through yours. Just take it easy, get the CA glue out, and you'll be good to go. And if you make some of these, tag me on Instagram or Facebook if you post, you know, pictures, if you make something with using these bamboo sticks or anything else that I do on the stream. I always love seeing what you guys make too. So big thank you to I've been talking for 3 hours. Lorenzix for super chatting. I appreciate the support. And I think that's about it, guys. So next week, like I said, we got a little bit different. We're not going to just do pen blanks. We have a different project that we're going to get the blanks ready for. We're going to be doing the castings for those. And then the following week, we'll turn up something, and it'll be kind of a useful shop thing. I'm pretty excited about it. I've actually been wanting to make something, you know, make this thing for quite a while. And I thought it was about time to get that thing rolling. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Let's see here. Is there any other announcements? Again, don't forget the February. It's like February 17th and 18th, I believe, that weekend. So it's the Friday and Saturday. Turner's Warehouse down in Arizona. They're having like it's kind of like an open house type of deal, but there's going to be a ton of demos. So if you're interested in that, you know, you don't have to like buy tickets or anything. You just show up. You know, on those days, and there's going to be free demos from me and a bunch of other people. I want to say like 5 or 6, maybe 7 other people are demoing, totally free. Just walk in and there's free demos. There's also going to be some classes. I'm doing one-on-ones. If you're interested in that, you would sign up for that on, there's only 2 spots available, but if you're interested in that, you'll sign up on the Turner's Warehouse website. So I think that's about it though, guys. So I hope you guys, like I said, have a great evening. Thank you again for joining the fun, and I will see you guys on next week's live stream.